Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Sideline Shenanigans podcast. Today with Jacob Magerdan,
Dalton Phillips.
and we're recapping some games that it ended up being a pretty good week again. We had a bunch of really good games that we expected to be close and very competitive, and they ended up being that way. I mean, almost every ranked matchup was a really good game, except for our Red River rivalry, which was
Yeah,
kind of a blowout. But
wasn't it?
also look around the country, there were some ranked teams that had really close games, and ended up pulling out wins, and so it ended up being a pretty fun week to just look at. Bama competing against South Carolina, having this game at home. Everybody thought, this is their bounce back game. You think they got to wake up and think we just got beat by Vanderbilt, who we haven't lost to in 60 years, and now we're playing South Carolina, who we also shouldn't lose to, a 3-2 football team with a freshman quarterback. And they honestly should have lost that game. South Carolina lost and had a pretty easy chance to win it at the end. They just needed field goal range, recovered an onside kick, and just couldn't do anything with the ball on offense. They were so horrible on offense in this game and scored 25 points. And a lot of that come from, as you can see by looking at the stats, Jalen Milroe played by far his worst
Yeah.
game of the year. It was ugly. It was really, really bad football from Milroe. He made multiple mistakes in this game, and the stats don't really reflect how bad it was because if you look at his rushing, he did have the two rushing touchdowns, and he also had the 209 yards and a passing touchdown. But you can see the two picks, and he also had a safety where he was on the one while getting hit. He decides to run back into the end zone, throw the ball away to nobody, intentional grounding, safety. Just awful play, really. And this was at a point where they hadn't scored much. They were winning at this point. On top of that, before the half, Milroe throws a pick with 8 seconds left. South Carolina returns it all the way back to like the 25, 30-yard line, some in that area, and gets a field goal before halftime. So his defense gave up 7 points, and Jalen Milroe gave up five.
Yeah.
So he gifted South Carolina a chance in that game multiple times with just horrible play. It really has ruined his case for a Heisman. I think that's slim to none that he wins a Heisman now. He would have to do some fantastic stuff in a lot of their big games at the end of the year. On the other side, for South Carolina, the story was really Lenore Sellers is not ready for a game like this. Their offense and statistically doesn't look horrible. The offense looks okay for the day. 132 rushing yards, 242 passing, and Lenore Sellers completes 23 passes for 238 yards. That's not a bad game at all on paper. He did have the two touchdowns and a pick, but there was times where he just couldn't move the ball down the field. They would have drives just completely stall out after a big play because they had very dysfunctional offense. And like I said, a lot of his scoring was done because of Milroe's mistakes and gifting South Carolina opportunities.
If he plays like that against the Tennessee defense, that I've said it multiple times,
Oh, it's a
might be
great
the best in the country. Uh, I just don't see it going their way. Even I mean, I'm already pre throwing my picks out there, but that was already going to be said anyways. But I would love to see him play like this because he played terrible. I watched this game and I was like,
Yeah.
man, if they lose to South Carolina here, this is going to be embarrassing. Because I mean, we'll see here about what my Vols did later in the video, but yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
it's a scary week. That's all I'm going to say.
Backing up a Vanderbilt loss with a loss to a South
Yeah,
Carolina team that was
would have
already
been bad.
starting rough in conference play.
But this South Carolina team has played good games with good teams. I'm not saying the South Carolina team is that bad. It's just the fact of Sellers is just going to figure out what he's going to do. He's a great rushing quarterback, but like his stats aren't showing that. Like he's got to be able to move the ball because you have Rocket Sanders in the backfield, and he is great. I love watching Rocket Sanders play ball because he can. He's averaging 5 yards a carry against Alabama, and that's a notoriously really good defensive team. And they're not that good this year, but I'm still.
Yeah, looking at past running back performances against Bama, obviously they have generally had really good linebackers and contain the run game
Yeah.
well. Stellar's run game does look rough, but he was sacked a lot in this game, and they were pressuring him constantly. And it's really, again, not a great Bama pass rush. It just shows you that South Carolina's offensive line is pretty poor. And, of course, quarterback play coming from a guy unexperienced. He wasn't ready for this game, and they still had a chance. And really, truly should have won. I mean, they really should have won. They had the ball, like I said, past the 50-yard line after an onside kick and couldn't even move it at all. I mean, they didn't move it at all. And you get, 1 in a million chance you get an onside kick, first of all. That doesn't happen very often at all. And then you blow that opportunity with a terrible drive. Defensively, it's just really a story of both pass rushes being really good. On one side, you have Kennard at South Carolina. That is unbelievable, easily an NFL guy. He's boosted his draft stock an unbelievable amount in this season alone. He looks phenomenal. I don't know how any guy can block him, really. I've watched tackle after tackle after tackle, and he goes out there and messes them up, man. He's tough. He's very tough to block. He's very elite pass rusher, speed and power, and consistent. I mean, every game he's out there making plays. And he doesn't have to come in the pass rush. I mean, he picked off a ball earlier in the year, and he does stuff like that too. He's just a freak. Again, Bama wins, but to me, it was so underwhelming for Bama as they wanted to come out and perform well after losing to Vanderbilt. Next game here, Illinois beats Purdue in an overtime thriller. Of course, Purdue went for the 2-point conversion in overtime because they're 1-5, and they wanted that top 25 upset, and Illinois avoids what would have been a season-ending loss. This isn't really on paper a bad performance at all by Illinois offensively. They play really well, actually. McCray runs really well. Even Altmaier, who's traditionally not a great rushing quarterback, 10 carries for 60 yards, and as you can see, he passed the ball phenomenally well. 20 for 34, 379 yards, 3 touchdowns. That's a great game by the Illinois offense. You could say the same on the other side for Purdue. Ryan Brown and Devin Mockabee. I mean, that is unbelievable. You combine your running back and your quarterback for over 220 yards, and they run the ball so well. I mean, score the rushing touchdown on the ground by Mockabee, who is a great back, and they just average 7.5 yards per carry as a team. That's Illinois just couldn't stop the run at all. Brown also passed the ball really well, 297 yards, 3 touchdowns. This was purely offensive game, no defense at all. And again, the only reason Illinois won and it stopped the scoring is because the 2-point conversion at the end. I mean,
which I'm going for in that situation too. I mean, I'm not trusting my team, even though they played well. Like they played good. I'm going for in that situation too because you want to upset them there.
Yeah, I agree 100%. You want to go for the 2. Again, we'll talk about it later. A team that I think should have went for 2 at the end of regulation didn't do it, and we saw what happened. Going for 2 is always the right decision in that situation with a 1-5 football team. Receiving wise, Pat Bryant, we've talked about him all year. Phenomenal receiver for Illinois. Only has the 4 receptions, but goes for 104 yards and a touchdown. On the other side, Max Clare was the guy for Purdue. 6 catches, 133 yards. Didn't score a touchdown, but as you can see, the ball was spread around a lot to the receivers on both sides. Looking at the defense, Purdue's pass rush, unbelievable. 5 sacks, and they're getting after Altmaier. And then for Illinois, that's no pass rush and really no TFLs. Only 3 total in a game. That's the issue. The defense didn't get to the quarterback, and he was back there just sitting there playing his game and completing passes and going up and down the field. Illinois wins because of their talent in this game, but this is scary for Illinois as a team that I thought looked pretty good in a lot of big-time games this year, and they really struggle with a bad Purdue team. Next game here to dive into our picks for the week, which me and Dalton both did well. I went 8-2. Dalton went 7-3. A nice bounce-back week after we both struggled last week. And this was a good one to start it for both of us. We picked the ASU upset at home, but really, truthfully, ASU to me looked like the better football team. It didn't even look like an upset. That's because Cam Rising is just he's not healthy at all. He looked awful in this football game. 16 for 37. I mean, this guy was elite when he played healthy 2 years ago. No reason should he have played this football game. He was throwing off one leg for 50% of his throws in that game. No mobility. Game. He was limping sideline to sideline, and he also threw 3 picks because his hand. He just couldn't grip the ball to let it go. I mean, he was just...
Yeah, I was reading on something earlier today, too, also on Cam Rising. I heard that he might get another year eligibility.
Yeah, he does.
Which, that is insane. That is crazy. That is the 8 years for him. He's an old man playing college football. And, I mean, maybe he should just call it quits this season and just hope for next season because that's a terrible performance there.
I think that the odds of him doing that are definitely escalated. He does not play another game within a couple weeks for sure. There's no way you let him play again. And now Utah's hopes for the conference is pretty much dead. That means no playoffs. I don't see a point in him playing the rest of this year, but now it's 2 straight years of him sitting out. Can the guy come back and be an efficient quarterback in college football with missing 2 straight seasons? I don't know. He did look good in the one game he was healthy this year. So we see what the guy can be when he's healthy. It's just we haven't seen that in 2 years. On the other side, Sam Leavitt, 11 for 18, 154, a touchdown and a pick. However, he got hurt in this game and come back in, kind of a warrior-type play because he knew they needed him to win. He took a shot in the kidney. I mean, he was done for. I don't really think a lot of people thought he was coming back in there. And then second half comes out, and he's ready, man. He rolls back out there and plays and gets it done behind the back in Cam Skattebo. Cam Scatterbo is unbelievable. This is a kid that came
Yeah,
from Sacramento State, unrecruited by all power schools out of high school, and ASU was one of the only teams to offer him out of the transfer portal, and easily looks like one of the best backs in the country. He now has well over 700 rushing yards on the year, and he's elite running back when it comes to contact balance. He stays on his feet through hits, just like Genty. He really, truly, if you watch him, he reminds you of the Genty ability to bounce off a tackle and then just keep going. He's a
yep.
bruiser, small, low to the ground, and that helps a ton, of course, with these big
That's a
bruisers.
hard guy to tackle.
Yeah, it's a hard guy to tackle. You really can't get underneath him. He's so short. 22 carries for 158 yards, 2 touchdowns. Also, 4 catches for 41 yards, and one of those was a deep ball that goes over the top, and he catches it and keeps running afterwards. As you can see, 21 yards. It's just an elite running back. He does everything, and he's the reason they won this game. Even though, Levitt had a good game, Scatterbo was awesome. On the other side, the only reason that Utah hung in there was Micah Bernard. Micah Bernard goes 21 for 129 and a touchdown, and they had keyed in on him. Like, they knew he was going to run the ball because Cam Rising looked awful, and they just couldn't stop him. He just kept running all over him. Bernard is a stud back, and I think with a healthy Cam Rising, this would be a really good football team. And I think even with Wilson in there, they could have at least had a chance in this game, a better chance than with Rising. Because if you don't have the 3 picks, who knows? I mean, you only lost by 8.
That's 3 possessions that you're giving them that you should have at least score at least on one of those.
Yeah, and looking at the receivers, we talked about Dorian Singer. He's their lead guy. Brant Keithy, really good tight end, does a lot of unique things. They put him in the backfield sometimes and let him run some direct snaps and stuff like that. So he's a very athletic tight end. On the other side for Arizona State, we talked about Jordan Tyson. And of course, I just mentioned Scatterbo's receiving threat, which is really great out of a guy coming out of the backfield. Defensively, not a lot to talk about. Both pass rushes really weren't getting after him, and neither one of them had a ton of TFLs. This is more of an offensive game and kind of a battle of field position, and just, ASU looked better and had the home field advantage, and it was important in this one with Scatterbo. Next game here, talked about at the beginning. This was bad. Oklahoma stood no chance in this game, and Texas, again, looks like one of the best teams in the country. Ewers comes back. He didn't look good in the first half, truthfully. Ewers made mistakes. He was overthrowing guys. He threw the pick in the first couple of possessions, and it just looked rough for Texas. But it didn't matter because their defense was elite. I mean, Oklahoma got nothing going in this game. They threw for under 150 yards. They rushed for under 100, and their lead back averaged 2.7 yards per carry. This was Texas all the way. They dominated this game. And once Ewers got it going, once the rushing attack picked up, it was over. Dalton, talk about this rushing attack for Texas.
Yeah, Quintravion Wisner, I didn't really mention him much in the pick'ems, and he went off. You need that to win ball games, and this Texas team looks good. They're very good.
Yeah.
This is the best team in the country, even with Quinn Ewers not playing the best that he possibly could. They're still the best in the country.
Yeah, Ewers did not look great in this game. He didn't even look healthy in the first half. Now, again, he figured it out in the second half. It was kind of just jitters coming back to the first game, and you're not playing an easy Oklahoma defense. The Oklahoma defense is actually pretty solid, and he pieced them up. I mean, it was really nice in the second half to watch him play. Defensively, we talked about how Texas's defense got all over Oklahoma. 5 sacks, 11 TFLs. Texas is legit. I think, to me, I've said it all year, I think they're the best team in the country, and to me, they're the only team in the country where you can sub one player out and sub one right back in, and it's just an elite guy replace them. No other team can say that. I mean, this team can literally take out every single player.
They take out their starting quarterback, and you have Arch Manning in there, and he plays fine. I mean, I think they still beat Oklahoma by 2 touchdowns with Arch Manning in there.
I agree.
Yeah.
This is just a really well-built roster, and Sarkisian's a phenomenal coach. Next game here, this was a big one for Penn State. They didn't play the best ball I've seen them play all year, but this USC team is not a bad football team. Penn State, offensively, if you take away Aller's 3 picks, he has a pretty solid game besides the picks. I mean, 30 for 43 is pretty good completion percentage. 391 yards is great. 2 touchdowns is pretty daggone good. It's the 3 picks. That's horrible. On the other side, USC, Miller Moss, 220 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. Not the reason they lost this week. He played well. He did struggle last week and was kind of the reason they lost. This week, good game. Woody Marks, 20 carries for 111 yards. On the other side for Penn State, Katron Allen is their lead back in this game, and Nick Singleton really couldn't get anything going at all. He had nothing. I mean, they were shutting him down every time he was in there. They almost anticipated the run when Singleton come in, but Katron Allen did well on his 16 carries with 56 yards and a touchdown. This is the story of the game. Tyler Warren had an unbelievable game.
17 receptions is insane. That's close probably to the NCAA record. I know it's near there somewhere.
Yes, it is. It is tied with a record. You can
Yeah.
consider this one of the greatest tight end games in college football
That
history.
is crazy.
He goes 17 catches, 224 yards, and a touchdown. Let's talk about who's going to finish second in the tight end award this year, because Tyler Warren pretty much wrapped it up this week. That's unbelievable play. He also scored on a play where he snapped the football. He lined up at center in
I've
a
seen this one. Yeah, it's
unbalanced
crazy.
set, snapped it to a quarterback, who then threw the ball to a quarterback on the outside, ran a streak up the middle, and caught an unbelievable catch. Contested, arguably was getting pass interfered, and comes down with it. There's very few tight ends that are doing that in all levels of football. Unbelievable player. Tyler Warren, superstar. And we talked about it coming into the game, how he was the guy for Aller. Definitely is still the guy. The dude's a stud. Next game here, Arizona on the road playing BYU. BYU looks legit. 6-0, 3-0 in conference play. I would argue probably the most unexpected team in college football this year, them or Indiana. Both teams that nobody would have thought would be 6-0 right now. They're amazing. I mean, they play really good football. In the rushing attack for BYU, we talked about how it's going to be, kind of a mixed backfield. We didn't know who would get the ball because most of their guys have come back and been healthy now. Hinckley Ropati goes 9 for 65, averaging 7.2 yards per carry. This was a guy that originally was listed as fourth on their depth chart, now contributing. And we talked about how injuries could help you in the future as long as those guys are, of course, not seriously injured. And it has. Now you know how good Ropati is because you got to play him early on. LJ Martin comes back from injury. He's pretty good in this game, 11 for 49 for 4.5 yards per carry and a touchdown. You love to see that from a guy coming back from an injury. Quarterback also runs the ball well, but short amount of carries, only 6. On the other side, for Arizona, the rushing attack it wasn't great. Quali Conley didn't have the kind of game he had to have for them to win. 13 carries for 39 yards, only averaging 3 yards per carry. Did have the touchdown. And Fafita with 3 picks. We talked about it all year. Fafita has underwhelmed so bad. It's just a guy that everybody expected to be a superstar quarterback. He's been really rough. And 275 and a touchdown is not a bad stat line, but the 3 picks is awful. He does get the ball to his stud in Tedero McMillan for 5 for 78. Again, I'd like to see that guy have 10 for 170. Yeah. But it's just not enough. You really got to get that guy a ball, and especially when you're struggling like he is this year. Fafita it's just looked really bad for him this season. On the other side for BYU, Darius Lassiter and also Chase Roberts both play great games, 5 catches both. And as you can see, those are the 2 guys that have kind of separated themselves as the main targets for Retzlaff. But they have a pretty mixed bag of receivers that can contribute in their passing game. Arizona defensively was awful, giving up 41 points, but BYU 19 points and had 3 picks, which was huge.
I love this BYU team. I love watching BYU because I mean they're having a great time down there, and they're winning. So I want to see them in the playoffs.
I would love to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah.
BYU is a good football team, and right now you could argue there's 2 teams in that conference that should make the playoffs if Kansas State can keep it going and BYU keeps it going. And again, you have Iowa State. That's 3 teams that are competing for a playoff spot.
Yep.
This is a strong conference so far this year. Next game here, me and Dalton got this one right as we picked, technically the underdog, but LSU at home is really never an underdog. The stadium atmosphere there is insane. And they pull this one out in overtime with a 29-26 victory. Looking at the stats, Dart plays pretty good for Ole Miss. His 1 interception was a heck of a play by a corner in the end zone. So, you don't really blame that on him. He was going for the deep ball, and the guy made a nice play. On the other side for LSU, Garrett Nussmeier goes 337 with 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. Again, love to see the tone back on the interceptions, but he plays well with 337 passing yards. Rushing, Ulysses Bentley is their lead back this week. 11 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. Henry Parrish has been their guy all year and was over 400 rushing yards in the season, and now they found a second back that looks pretty good. Problem is, Ole Miss now has 2 losses in the conference. That almost eliminates them from an SEC championship. Yeah. And now it's really hard to make the playoffs if you don't win out. You know who's on their schedule?
Yeah.
Georgia.
Yeah, Jackson Dart was talking about it in his interview. I was watching that, and he goes, the guy doing the interview literally looked at him and said, "What do you think about this loss?" And he literally just said, "Win out." And I mean, that's what you got to do. That's the only way you're even getting looked at, because you can't be in the SEC with 2 losses. I mean, that's not going to happen. You're not going to be close to a title game.
Yeah, no, if you drop a 3rd game, it's over. And again, they have Georgia still on the schedule. On the other side for LSU, They don't really get the rushing attack going. It's not a horrible rushing attack, but it was all passing. Nussmeier made a lot of plays, and Kyron Lacy is the guy to talk about for them. Phenomenal game. 5 for 111 and a touchdown. That touchdown was the game-winning touchdown in overtime on literally the first play, 25-yard reception in the end zone. The dude's a stud. He made a lot of plays. He also got hurt in this game and come back and still performed. They've got weapons. Him and Aaron Anderson both played great games. And on the other side, two deadly receivers in Caden Lee and also Trey Harris. Lee is an elite slot receiver. The guy makes plays left and right out of the slot. And then Trey Harris, 7 for 102, and that's with him missing the entire fourth quarter. And I'm not sure, but I think he missed some of the third. He was injured, missed the end of this game, was in street clothes. I'm not sure how long he's expected to miss, but that is a massive blow to Ole Miss.
Yes.
This is the leading receiver in the country. And honestly, we could go a week of football this week and him still be the leader. He's
still there because he has that many receiving yards. It's ridiculous how many he has.
Yeah, I mean, the dude has been a stud all year, and they've kept saying stat pad, stat pad, stat pad. That's been the thing on him all year.
But 100 against LSU is no joke.
Yeah.
It isn't. Yeah.
It's just stop saying it. Yeah, it's ignorant at this point to say that. The guy almost has 1,000 yards, and now we don't know how healthy he is. This is obviously, like I said, a massive loss for Ole Miss, and we'll see if they can bounce back without him. Next game here. This was the game of the week. It lived up to the hype. Awesome football game to watch. We had like 7 lead changes. Ohio State jumped out to an early lead. Oregon come back, and then Ohio State would score, and Oregon would score. It was awesome. Oregon's home field advantage was great in this game. The crowd was going crazy. Looking at the stats, both teams play really well. There really isn't a blemish on the stat sheets, and that's why it's a 1-point game, because the performance on both sides was phenomenal. Howard goes 326, 2 touchdowns. Sadly had the blunder at the end where he just forgets.
If he slides 1 second earlier, they win the ball game.
Yeah, if he slides 1 second earlier, it's not a hard kick from where he would have been at.
Yep.
And they have an elite kicker. It's Ohio State. It's just a lapse, and you don't usually see that from a veteran quarterback. But again, that moment in that stadium where I said it was getting rowdy, he just lost what time it was. And he looked up. You could see him. He looked up and he realized, oh my gosh, I made the mistake of not sliding. And I'll say this, genius by Dan Lanning. Absolutely genius. He throws 12 defenders on the field and intentionally gets a 12-man on the field because it was going to burn off the clock. And Dan Lanning knew that if they ran one play and as long as he covered and nobody got open, then there would be 4 seconds gone and there would only be time for one more play.
That's a forgotten rule in football there. That should be abused more, in my opinion.
Well,
I mean,
Lanning knew that rule because the rule is if Ohio State would have had a timeout, because Ryan Day saw the 12 men on the field. He's running over to the ref. He's like, 12 men, 12 men. But you have to snap the ball for it to be 12 men because they have up until the snap to run a guy off the field. So Ohio State can't do anything about it. They can't call a timeout. They don't have any. So Howard snaps the ball, runs the play. It doesn't really matter. It's incomplete because they're double covering everybody because they have 6 corners on the field. And then that's 4 seconds that you need. Honestly, to me, it's a rule that doesn't make a ton of sense. They can basically, like you said, they can basically cheat, quote unquote, cheat.
It is quoted. You have 12, but against 11.
But it's genius. It's genius.
Yes,
Dan Lanning knew the rule. They asked him about it. They said, "Did you do that on purpose?" And he kind of avoided answering with a yes. But he did say,
I would answer yes to that because that is just genius. That's smart. Use the rules until they change them, in my opinion. Like last year with the fake slide. If I was a quarterback and I was athletic, trust me, I'd be fake sliding all the time.
It was the thing with that is kind of the integrity of the game. And so not mentioning no coaches ever say that in the post-con.
Well, yeah. Of course, that's like faking injuries and stuff. I'm pretty sure that should be banned anyway.
Ole Miss does that all the time.
Like the signaling and they just drop. I mean, you just got to take that out, in my opinion.
On the other side for Oregon, Dillon Gabriel plays great. He looked like that Heisman level candidate that I talked about coming into it. Again, he's definitely staying in that top 5 for me when I'm talking about Heisman level quarterbacks. He's been awesome. And the rushing attack is great for Oregon. We talked about Jordan James and how good he was and how much he would mean in this game because you have to counter the rushing attack that Ohio State has. He outperformed both of them combined. This is a great game from Jordan James, 115 yards. And on the other side for Ohio State, TreVeyon Henderson got it going, but Judkins never did. And he also had a massive fumble that was a big swinging point in the game because Ohio State kind of looked like they were taking control, and Judkins fumbled. This game is really just a story of 2 phenomenal football teams. Oregon looks much better than they did at the beginning of the year when they were in a 10-point game with Idaho. And Ohio State has proved, we're legit. I mean, they all year don't play, they haven't played much competition up to this game. They competed with one of the best teams in the country and truly could have won. It's a toss-up game. If they meet again in the Big Ten Championship, which I expect, again, it could go either way. Looking at receiving, Jeremiah Smith, one of your Heisman candidates, 9 for 100 and a touchdown. Dude's a stud. And then Emeka Egbuka, when you have a cheat code of just throwing it up to a Buka on the other side, and he goes 10 for 93 and a touchdown. And that's not even talking about all the rest of the guys on this offense. It is loaded with talent, and so is the Oregon side. Evan Stewart, insane game, 7 for 149 and a touchdown. Tez Johnson, 7 for 75 and a touchdown. Terrence Ferguson, we talked about him as well, 4 for 62. The guy they didn't have because he makes a terribly stupid decision and spits on someone is Trayshawn Holden. What will be the repercussions of that? Will Oregon do something? Will Lanning suspend him for a game? It's been a big talk because he missed the rest of that game due to him spitting on somebody, which is just unacceptable.
That's stupid. That's just stupid.
It's ignorant. It's unacceptable, and it's something that he should be held accountable for, in my opinion. I don't know if he'll catch a 1-game suspension or not, but we'll see how Lanning handles it. It's a bad look though for this football team. He's a veteran guy. He shouldn't be doing that. The only thing that didn't go somebody's way was the forced fumble on Judkins, and you could really say that one possession may have made all the difference. Next game here. This is a fun one in the SEC. Vanderbilt, of course, coming off the high of a win over Alabama, and Kentucky on a bye, preparing for this Vanderbilt game, coming off the high of winning over Ole Miss. Two teams that just come off huge wins and played a pretty good football game. Vanderbilt's offense was still rolling pretty well on the ground, not as good as we've seen it in other weeks, but again, they play a slow style of football, and they're going to control clock, and they're going to really run it out. I think they had like an 8-minute drive at one point in this game. It's like 14 plays or something. That's just Vanderbilt offense, and it's really good. It works. It does exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's drain clock and finish games by 7. They win by small margins because they're not going to blow somebody out. That's just not how their offense works. But so far this year, it's proven to be pretty successful. On the other side for Kentucky, Vanderbilt doesn't have a bad game. 15 for 25, 158 and a touchdown. You just would like to see a little bit more out of him. And then Sumo Karngbae, 12 for 59 and a touchdown. And this is the guy to me that they need to use more. Jamarion Wilcox on 3 carries for 35 yards and 11.7 yards per carry. They kind of gave this to Vanderbilt with very conservative play calling. They were not taking advantage of moments when they could have, some 4th and 2s where they punt, or just really not taking advantage of the clock. You should never think you're going to have another drive when Vanderbilt's got the ball.
You've got to be confident in your offense and believe that because Vanderbilt's a hard team to play against this year, especially. I mean, they're stuck in the past, but for some reason this year, this Vanderbilt, I know exactly the reason. That's Dio Pavia. He's him.
Well, and the other difference on this team is Jerry Kill coming in. Jerry Kill was Pavia's coach, and Jerry Kill knows exactly how to use the weapons that he's been given. He is a genius when it comes to coordinating his offense to what fits his players. And he knows how to use this guy. It's a guy he's already played with or worked with. And he's also got other guys on this team that come with him. So he just knows what he's doing. He knows how to operate this offense. And I think he'll go after these kinds of guys in the future, portal or even recruiting classes, to just keep this offense working. Vanderbilt's offense right now, it's hard to stop.
It's just different in the SEC. You don't see this a lot in the SEC. It's just different.
You don't see this offense a lot in college football at all anymore. It's really a forgotten art of college football, the way they run the ball. And having a quarterback that can do both is very important. I mean, 15 for 18 for 143 and 2 touchdowns is still really good in the air. Of course, he has the pick, but that's one of his 3 incompletions. And he's just very consistent. He does everything right most of the time. Pavia misses parts of this game. As you can tell, their other quarterback didn't throw a pass. So Pavia did his job when he was in there, and they did their job on offense when he wasn't there. The injury was concerning because who knows, without Pavia, they stand no chance. I'll tell you what they have figured out. Pavia has a cannon arm and can let a ball fly when he needs to, and a lot of the time he lets it go at the perfect time. Like they'll run, 2 straight possessions where they're just running the ball really well, showing short routes, and then they'll run a play where he has an option route where he can either hand it off to a running back, keep it, or it's a triple option where he has a pass in there, and he'll let one fly because a safety crashes to stop the run game, because you almost have to have the safeties to stop the run game they have, and boom, he lights you up down the field. He done it against Bama, and he did it in this game. It's really smart play calling, and a lot of it has to do with the play caller being great and the guy that's running the plays being phenomenal at doing this exact style of offense. Next game here, an unexpected one for me and Dalton. We really thought West Virginia would really hang in this game and compete more, but it's just Garrett Green having a bad game again. 2 picks, only 206 passing yards. He did well on the ground too. He ran the ball well, and it really was all him on the ground. Jaheim White has an okay game, and Donaldson really, truly bad in this game with only 1.9 yards per carry. On the other side, Iowa State did everything they had to do to win. Rocco Becht was consistent yet again. He's done this all year where he just does his job and plays how he has to play to win. 265 yards, a touchdown, no picks, no mistakes. He plays pretty good football for a guy that's not been doing this, but for, whatever how many games we've played this year in 6. He's really good at managing the game and doing exactly what the coaches ask of him. Running the ball. We talked about how this was going to be an important aspect for both sides. Iowa State, Carson Hansen runs the ball well. Jalen Jackson, not great in his carries. And really, they didn't get the rest of the guys involved because Hansen was having a good game. 3 touchdowns, as you can see. Receiving wise, we talked about West Virginia's guys coming into this game. Hudson Clement was their lead receiver coming in. He doesn't have a bad game, but on the other side, they one-upped him. Jalen Noel plays great with a touchdown, and Jaden Higgins 6 for 102. It's a good Iowa State team. Another team that I really don't think a lot of people were high on coming into the year, and they're really good. The 3 competitive teams in this conference are going to really come down to the wire, and we'll see who can win it. But again, I think there are going to be 2 representatives out of this conference now.
Yep.
Next game here, this is one of those 3 teams, Kansas State. They go on the road into a tough environment now, Colorado, with Deion, and the fans really love them, and the fans really love supporting them. They were there, and they were going wild because this Colorado team is much better than last year's. And they give Kansas State a really good football game, but Kansas State shows again why they're a top 15 team in the country, in my opinion. Again, I have this team as my favorite to win the conference right now, but it's just I love the rushing attack. Looking at the stats, D.A. Giddens is unbelievable. 25 carries for 182 yards. He is a bruiser that can also get shifty on you. He can spin a guy out, he can juke a guy out, and his stiff arm is nasty. Passing, Avery Johnson goes 15 for 23 with 224 yards, and he has the game-winning touchdown. He throws a deep ball to his man, Jace Brown, and that's a huge play. That it was the decider in this game. And Avery Johnson every week has proven he's getting a little bit better as a passer. Just every week, slightly better. And this week, they let him start throwing the ball deep. He started throwing some completions down the field, and that's just going to make this Kansas State offense that much harder to stop. On the other side, Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, great game. 34 for 40, unbelievable completion percentage. 388 yards, 3 touchdowns. Again, has the 1 pick, but when the guy's playing that good, he can make a mistake here and there. Running the ball.
That's what kills them. It kills them. Their offensive line is terrible. Now, look at that. It's ridiculous.
As a team, negative 29 yards.
That is insane.
You just had a game where the other team outrushed you by 200 yards, not because they had 200, but because you had negative 29. This is the worst rushing team in college football right now. They are horrible at running the ball. They have decent backs. These are not bad running backs. Like Dallin Hayden was a guy they expect to be pretty good. He's had good games this year. They do nothing in the rushing attack. And again, Shedeur is not protected at all. The guy is under constant pressure and still throws for 388 yards. Receiving, Amarion Miller, phenomenal game. 8 for 145. Will Shepherd, 5 for 83. But I think you notice a name that's missing.
Travis isn't there.
Travis got hurt in this game and missed most of the second half. That is the story. Me and Dalton talked about how important he is on both sides of the ball for them, and that without him, they're not as good. Now, they have a player like Shedeur that can win them a football game still, and as you can tell, he kept them close. With Travis, maybe they win this one. With Travis, maybe that big completion at the end of the game isn't a big completion because he's the guy guarding Jace Brown. It's just you can't be a team that has that one guy that is such a glue piece, and if he's out, you're done. We talked about Texas and how you could lose any guy on that team and replace him with talent. That's the kind of team you have to be a college football playoff team and a very competitive football team. They just don't have it. Colorado just isn't there yet. And this is only year 2. And I know they're going to lose a lot in this offseason. It'll be kind of interesting to see what they do.
You lose those 2 key pieces, and I don't know who you're going to fill them with, but it's got to be somebody good, and you better fix that offensive line. That is the most important part right there is fix that offensive line. They're
awful. They are horrible. And it's a unit that has a 5-star at left tackle who was a really high-rated tackle, and he hasn't been bad this year. But when your other 4 guys stink, it's really difficult to win. Again, talking about the defense, 6 sacks. That's the difference in this game. They're on Shedeur all game. I mean, he has no time to make plays. His pick was likely off of a play where he was pressured and just threw something up. It won't work. This won't work for them, and it's obviously proved it won't. They can't compete with the super high-tier opponents in a game where they have no protection for Shedeur. Next game here, No, this one was scary for Dalton. Every second of this had to been like, oh my gosh, please do not drop 2 games in a row, because this would be an awful loss. This Florida team now 3-3. Napier to me is out the door practically.
Yep.
And Tennessee wins it, but it just took every ounce of what they had left. I mean, the mistakes are unbelievable. And the same you could say about Florida. I mean, again, they shanked the kick in overtime, and Tennessee was able to just finally, rush it down the field and score. But Dalton, if you want to talk about Tennessee, it was a struggle.
Yeah, this game scared me. Like, I mean, I was expecting us to kill this Florida team because this Florida team is not good.
Mm-mm.
I mean, their quarterback situation is just not there, and Mertz got hurt. I think if Mertz is in that game, I hate to say it, but I think we lose the game
Yeah, Mertz was playing great football.
because he was playing good, and DJ Lagway just wasn't. And I think DJ Lagway won us the game. I'm going to be honest, he did. I hate to say that the other quarterback won the game for us, but he did. And because Nico wasn't winning the ball game for us, so might as well let the other team quarterback win. I mean, I love Nico. I'll say it. I love him.
Yeah.
But, I mean, we can't move the ball. And even with Dylan Sampson, a running back, the second best running back in the SEC, we can't move the ball. And if we can't move the ball against Alabama, I'm terrified because, I mean, I have my little brother sitting up there upstairs sleeping right now, and and I'm going to be here listening to him. I've been listening to him all week, and I mean, it's coming. We have so many athletes, like it is ridiculous. It's not like they're not getting touches; they're getting the ball enough. Like Squirrel White had the ball 5 times. He got 71 yards. That's good, but like, I just want to see like Nico get the ball to like Chris Brazzell. He is an athlete. When he has the ball in his hands, he makes plays, and like I love watching him with the ball. And Nimrod is like showed himself as a decent receiver. He was not many people talked about him at the beginning of the season, and he's been good the last 2 weeks. Get him the ball 2 or 3 more times.
You'll love to see him get the ball. Yeah, exactly. Because with a guy like McCoy not having, playing this game with the injury or whatnot, and Thornton not having a great game because of his prior injury, you would have liked to have seen a guy like Nimrod get the ball more.
Our defense is elite. Like that's obvious. I mean, we don't win this game without our defense. I know I said Lagway won the game for us. It was because of their defense. I mean, their defense is ridiculous, and that's the only reason we've won ball games this year. Because, I mean, we've just struggled offensively after the Oklahoma, and I've been scared. Like, I'm still scared a little bit, but I believe in our defense, and I mean, they keep just proving things to people, and I hope they keep doing. They keep doing it.
Yeah. 3 sacks, 12 TFLs. That number is off big time. 12 TFLs. Yep. You're all in their backfield all game. And yeah, it's been the defense the last 2 weeks, and even in the loss to Arkansas, they played good. Honestly, I don't think that Tennessee stretches the ball out enough, and it almost seems like since the Oklahoma game where they couldn't protect Nico on the deep route,
we're scared.
They've become scared. Yes, they have. Yep. On the other side for Florida, we've talked about it. This is not a good football team. This is a bad Florida football team. This is a game that Tennessee really truly should have won by multiple touchdowns. Florida passing. Graham Mertz, 11 for 15, 125 and a touchdown. Like you said, I think the same thing. If Graham Mertz had finished out this game, I really do think Tennessee was looking at 2 straight losses to teams they shouldn't lose to. Mertz was a freak injury. He throws a touchdown pass, and then as he's finishing the throw, he steps back on his knee, and boom, there it goes. To me, I think obviously something had to have happened earlier in the season or even in this game where his knee had got, taken a bad hit, and that was just the final blow was that step back after the touchdown pass. Lagway, first play he subs in. Literally his first play is a pick. First throw he throws. Gets Tennessee right back in it. That creates their offense because their offense gets good field position. And really, they haven't been able to score without good field position this year. No. You talked about the rushing attack for Tennessee. It's really good in the second half again, not good in the first. I don't know what they have to do to figure that out. It's definitely something to do with game planning. Teams are coming in ready for their rushing attack, and they're just not as scared of Nico anymore, even though he's really good when he gets out and makes
he can sling the ball. Like he can sling the ball everywhere. It's just like we're playing like even Heupel's playing scared, which surprised me because he's usually one of the most offensive aggressive coaches in college football. I mean, I want to see him throw the ball more, even though he's a freshman. I want to see him get used to playing because I'd say in his future he's going to be throwing the ball almost 40 times a game because you lose Dylan Sampson if he leaves. But I'm hoping he doesn't. But we're going to say, yeah.
But again, looking at stats for Florida, we talked about Montrell Johnson, how he wasn't having the best season. He actually does play really well in this game, 12 for 85. It's the rest of the rushing attack. They have no other production from anybody else, and Baugh had an awful game, only averaging 2.1 yards per carry. And again, they were getting after Lagway and Mertz when he was in there. Receiving wise, we talked about Tennessee's already, looking at Florida's. Multiple guys with receptions in this game, and again, Mertz was feeding the guys. Lagway, on the other hand, didn't do great at getting it to other guys. He was just kind of force feeding, and that's where he made mistakes.
Yep.
And again, the fumbles. Tennessee, they fumbled twice. Nico fumbles twice. I mean,
Yep.
luckily gets one of them back. But that's 3 weeks. That's 5 fumbles, and they lost 4 of them. That can't happen. And that's too
Nope.
many possessions you're giving away. And even the Oklahoma game, it got scary when they subbed
It did.
back out, and the other guy come back and made it a game. Again, I think you're right. Tennessee's playing way too conservative, and I think Heupel, it's unexpected. He runs that hurry up,
Yep.
get the next play, run the next play, run the next play, all the way down the field. That's what they've always done. Possessions that they did that in this game, it looked good. They got up and down the field. I think he just got scared when Nico fumbled and offense wasn't rolling. He was like, "Dang, I got to slow down. I got to beat this team just off my play calling and being conservative."
And we can't do that because we're one of those high-paced teams. That's why we were so good with Hendon Hooker, because Hendon Hooker would throw a ball to Jalen Hyatt, and I mean, as soon as he caught the ball, we were on the ball, and guess what? We handed the ball off, and you got a 10-yard carry. I mean, like that's just how it was. There was no like stop. Oh, we're going to let Dylan Sampson just run. It was pass, run, pass, run, pass, run.
Yeah.
I mean, it was just back and forth, and I love that, seeing that.
A dynamic offense, and that's what he's usually ran, and this year it's just not been that. It's scary, and I'm saying this game coming up is a big one, of course, for both.
Huge. Biggest game of the year.
And yeah, it matters so much for both teams to prove who they are in the SEC, to prove who they are in the country. Both teams have slid down the rankings now. Tennessee's fallen out of the top 10. One big issue is they don't have a statement victory other than the Oklahoma on the road.
We don't. No. And Oklahoma got killed.
They just got slaughtered by Texas, and it looked really bad. And the rest of their schedule was just cupcakes. And I thought that was going to be an issue coming into SEC play, is that they out of conference played Kent State, the worst team in college football. They played NC State, who is
was supposed to be good, but they're terrible.
Yeah, they're one of the worst teams in the ACC. To me, the issue is Tennessee didn't warm up Nico. Nico didn't get a warm-up game. His warm-up game is on the road at Oklahoma. You know how easy it is to warm up on the road at Oklahoma? Not. He plays 1 half against Chattanooga. He plays 1 half against Kent State. You can't have that. To me, they made mistakes, and they didn't think NC State was going to be this bad, so they thought that was their kind of – but that's hurt him. It's not helped him at all to not have a warm-up game against any real competition. So hopefully it's been enough. Hopefully this couple weeks of conservative play calling and sneaking by with a win here, and even though they lost last week, that does not eliminate them at all. This is the game. You prove who we are as a team and who we are for the rest of the season. Thank you guys so much for joining us this week. Again, super fun week of games. I enjoyed every one of them. And really, it was a game day where you could sit on the couch from 12 to 12 and watch really good college football.
Yep. Every
single time period of games had a really good football game. And really, there was times where I had multi-view rocking on YouTube, and it's like I don't even love the multi-view, to be honest. I know a lot of people love that. I hate the tiny screens.
That messes my head. That would mess my head up.
Yeah, I had a game pulled up on my phone watching it. It was just so good. This was a great week of college football. We expected it coming into it and seeing all those big-time games. And again, this upcoming week, it's going to be fun. We have 2 massive games, Texas, Georgia, Bama, Tennessee. Again, join us on Thursday. And expect a special guest. This little brother he's speaking of.
Oh, yeah.
So expect a little wild video coming on Thursday.
Yeah.
But again, thank you guys so much for joining. Dalton, you have anything you want to add?
Go Vols, and hopefully spread the ball around a little bit.
Yeah.
Wake up a little bit.
Yeah.
Wake up.
And like and subscribe if you guys enjoyed our videos, and leave comments on your thoughts about these games, and of course thoughts on this upcoming week. And peace, everybody.
Peace.